I paid my parents' bills and bought my dad a Rolex. But on his birthday, he smiled and said, "Respect can't be bought with money, son." So I stopped paying. Now they have no money. And they have no son either. My name is Alex, and I am the king of toilet paper. Yes, you heard that right. I don't sell luxury cars. I don't own a tech company, and I'm not in construction. My fortune comes from the toilet paper business. My factory produces tons of rolls every month. From the cheapest ones that feel like sandpaper to the premium ones, triple ply and chamomile scented. During the pandemic, while everyone was struggling with financial crises, I was doubling my income. But to my parents, that meant nothing. For years of college for this, my father would say with a mocking smile every time someone asked what I did for a living, "My son is a great businessman." Every day, thousands of people think of him. Right when they're in the bathroom, my mother joked between laughs. My older brother, Ryan, who worked at a bank and barely made enough to get by, also had something to say. "Alex, admit it. You're a millionaire thanks to the world's bathrooms." They all found it funny. But whenever they needed money, they suddenly forgot the jokes. When my parents couldn't pay the mortgage, I paid for it. When my mother wanted to remodel the house, I paid for it. When Ryan got into financial trouble, I helped him. I never denied them anything. But every time they talked about my work, they did it with that condescending tone, as if my money was worth less because it came from something they considered insignificant. I remember when I bought my father a Rolex, his lifelong dream. A gold, elegant watch, the kind that makes you feel powerful just by looking at it. "What is this?" he asked in surprise when I took it out of the box. "A gift." "Alex, this cost a fortune. Where did you get so much money?" "From the business, Dad." "Ah, of course. From toilet paper." He muttered with an ironic smile. I took a deep breath. "If you don't like it, I can return it." He stared at it for a few seconds before putting it on his wrist. "Well, since you already bought it." He accepted it. Just like always, they took my money, but never my respect. A year later, we were at the Grand Steakhouse celebrating his 60th birthday. I had paid for everything: the venue, the dinner, the wine, the live music. Nothing cheap, everything first class. My parents were surrounded by friends and family. Everyone was laughing, enjoying the food. And then came the toast. My father stood up, holding his glass, smiling. "I want to make a special toast," he said in a loud voice. The room fell silent. I smiled, expecting words of gratitude. But instead, my father said, "Let's toast to my son Alex, who thinks that throwing money at us will make us respect him more." And everyone laughed. I felt a knot in my stomach. "Excuse me?" I asked, thinking I had misheard. My father took a sip of wine and patted me on the shoulder. "Don't get upset, son. It's just a joke." "Yeah, bro, don't be so sensitive," Ryan said, laughing. My mother nodded. "You know how your father is, he likes to joke around." I looked at everyone at the table. They were laughing, enjoying themselves, completely unaware of what those words really meant. I had given them everything. I paid for their house, their luxuries, their dinners, and yet, I was still just a joke to them. I set my glass down on the table and stood up. "If my money means nothing to you, then I suppose you don't need it anymore." Silence fell over the table. "What do you mean?" my mother asked with a tense smile. I put on my jacket and looked at my father. "It means you won't receive a single cent from me anymore. From now on, you'll pay your own bills." Ryan laughed. "Come on, don't be so dramatic. This isn't drama. It's reality. If my money doesn't earn me respect, it won't buy you comfort either." My father set his glass down on the table with force. "So you're just going to abandon us over a joke?" "No, Dad. You abandoned me a long time ago when you decided my success wasn't worth anything." And with that, I left. I walked out of the restaurant, got into my car, and sat there in silence. I thought I'd feel anger, sadness, or disappointment. But you know what? I felt relief. For the first time in years, I didn't have to save anyone. I didn't have to worry about paying bills that weren't mine, fixing my family's problems, or listening to them laugh at me while taking my money without hesitation. That night, I slept better than ever. The first few days after my decision were quiet. No one called, no one texted. It almost seemed like my family hadn't noticed anything. But then, the problem started. The first message came a week later. It was from my mother. "Susan, son, did you forget to make the transfer this month?" I ignored the message. A few hours later, another one. "Susan, Alex, sweetheart, we're a little tight on money this month. If you could send it soon, it would really help." I smiled ironically. Tight on money. Of course. They were used to me solving everything. 2 days passed. My mother didn't insist anymore, but then my brother Ryan showed up. Ryan, Mom is worried. She says you're not answering. What's wrong with you? I didn't reply. Ryan, stop acting like you're offended. It's not that serious. That was when I couldn't hold back anymore. Me, I'm not offended. I just decided I'm not going to support you anymore. Ryan, what? Is this a joke? Me, do I look like I'm laughing? There was a long pause. Then his response came. Ryan, are you insane? You're going to let our parents struggle just because you got upset over a toast? Me, no. I'm going to let them take care of their own lives, like responsible adults. Ryan didn't reply again that night. 2 weeks later, my parents started realizing what my absence really meant. My mother's car payments fell behind. The gas bill went unpaid. The bank called about the mortgage. And then, my mother did what she did best. She tried to manipulate me with guilt. She called me while I was at the office. Alex, son, please, we need to talk. I sighed. What is it, Mom? I don't know what's going on with you, but enough time has passed. I miss you, sweetheart. Why don't you come over for dinner on Saturday? No, Mom. I'm not coming. Please, son. Her voice was sweet, almost pleading. Let's just forget what happened, okay? Come home. Let's have dinner together. I knew exactly what she was doing. She wanted to make me feel guilty, to lower my guard. This isn't about what happened at dinner, Mom. This is about the fact that you've been using me for years, and I'm not going to allow it anymore. Silence. Then, her tone changed. Alex, how can you say that? We're your family. Yes. But to you, I'm just an ATM. And ATMs run out of money too. And I hung up. I knew this was only the beginning. I knew they wouldn't stop. People who get used to receiving everything without effort never give up without a fight. And sure enough, 2 days after my father's call, the next phase began, the attack from all sides. First, it was my mother. Susan, son, I don't know what's wrong with you, but you're making a mistake. You can't turn your back on your family. Susan, we raised you with love. Are you really going to leave us like this? Susan, your father won't say it, but he's suffering a lot. Susan, I can't believe you just stopped paying the bills without warning. How are we supposed to survive? Susan, do you really want us to end up on the street? Susan, Alex, sweetheart, doesn't it hurt you to know that we're here, in the dark, because the electricity got cut off? I ignored the messages. I wasn't going to fall into that emotional trap anymore. But then, they started calling my friends. Alex, your mom texted me. She's worried. She says you're not answering and that the family is in trouble. Trouble? That's interesting. They never had trouble while spending my money. Look, I don't want to get involved, but maybe you could help them out a little. They're your parents. I hung up. I wasn't going to listen to a second more of that. And then, they did what I hated most. They tried to use family against me. Aunt Karen, Alex, what's going on? Your parents are desperate. Aunt Karen, look at everything they've done for you. Aunt Karen, son, they're older. Don't be resentful. Aunt Karen, your mother told me they don't even have internet now. How are they supposed to find a job if they can't even send a resume? Aunt Karen, do you expect your father, at his age, to go out looking for a job like some poor laborer? Is that what you want? I blocked her number. I knew she didn't actually care about my parents. She just loved the drama. But the worst was yet to come. One afternoon, while I was driving home from work, I saw an unknown number calling my phone. Normally, I wouldn't answer, but something told me to pick up this time. Yes. Alex. It was Ryan. And he sounded furious. What do you want? I want to know when you became such a selfish, heartless fool. I smiled ironically. Ah, so now I'm the selfish one. What else would you be? Mom and Dad are on the verge of collapse. All because you decided to throw a tantrum. It's not a tantrum. It's a boundary. A boundary? You're unbelievably ungrateful. Oh, for refusing to keep being their ATM. For leaving them in this situation without warning. You didn't even have the decency to prepare them for this. I laughed in disbelief. Prepare them? Ryan, they're adults. Why would I need to prepare them to pay their own bills? Because they never had to before. You took advantage of them and then abandoned them. I ran a hand over my face. The level of absurdity was unbelievable. So, according to you, it's my fault that they chose to depend on me? Of course it is. How do you expect them to get used to living without your help when you've given them everything for years? Well, Ryan, I guess they'll have to learn quickly. There was a tense silence. And then, he said the one thing that changed everything. If Dad ends up in the hospital from the stress you're causing him, it'll be your fault. That's when I laughed. Because they had finally run out of strategies and were using their last card. Guilt. If Dad ends up in the hospital, Ryan, it'll be because he never learned how to manage his own life. And I hung up. I knew this wasn't over yet. I knew they wouldn't stop. They had gone from emotional blackmail to manipulation, and now, there was only one option left: public humiliation. Exactly 1 week after Ryan's last call, it happened. I was at Central Perk Cafe with some colleagues when suddenly, my phone started blowing up with notifications. Message from a friend. Bro, what's going on with your family? Message from a former college classmate. Alex, did you really abandon your own parents? Message from a business partner. I saw a post about you on Facebook. Call me. I frowned and opened social media. And there it was. A public post from my mother. It's sad when a son forgets his family. We gave him everything, and now he repays us by leaving us in misery. We don't know how we'll pay rent this month, and the bank is already threatening to take our house. We never thought our own son would turn his back on us like this. We're only asking for a little help and understanding. If anyone has a job for 2 elderly people who have worked their whole lives, please help us. God bless you. Small Blue Diamond. And the worst part, more than 200 comments and hundreds of shares. What a disgrace. How can children be so heartless? And he calls himself a successful man? Shameful. Tell me who he is so I can make sure never to buy anything from his company. I hope life makes him pay for what he's done. My name wasn't mentioned in the post, but everyone knew exactly who it was about. I took a deep breath and laughed. Did they really think this would work? Everything okay? One of my coworkers asked. Yeah, my parents are putting on their little show on social media. I calmly finished my coffee and went home. I knew that within hours, I'd get a message from Ryan. And sure enough, my phone rang. Ryan, what is wrong with you? You made Mom beg strangers for money online. Me. I had nothing to do with it. They're the ones who decided to expose the situation on social media. Ryan, but would it really have killed you to keep helping them? Look at them. Don't you feel ashamed? Me. I'd be ashamed to be an adult who has never worked a day in his life and is now begging on Facebook. Ryan, I didn't expect this from you. Me. And I didn't expect you to be a parasite. But at least I've cut the problem off now. Ryan, Dad says if you don't fix this, he's going to sue you. That made me burst out laughing. Me? Sue me for what? Not paying their bills. Good luck with that. Ryan stopped replying. I knew he realized I was right. But then, my mother called. I sighed and picked up. Alex. Her voice sounded broken, almost as if she had been crying. What do you want, Mom? You don't have to do this. We just want things to go back to the way they were. I smiled sadly. No, Mom. You want me to go back to paying for everything while you keep seeing me as a failure. That's not true. Yes, it is. If I had been a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer, you would have been proud of me. But since I sell toilet paper, I'm just a joke to you. She didn't answer. I knew I was right. Mom, do you know what's the most ironic thing? What? That you never forgave me for my business, but you had no problem using my money all these years. She sobbed. Son, please. No, Mom. No more. I hung up. I knew this meant the war was coming to an end, but there was still one final blow left. After my mother's last call, I expected more manipulation attempts. I thought they would insist, keep trying to make me change my mind. But all I got was silence. No messages. No calls. No passive-aggressive posts on social media. At first, I thought they had learned their lesson, that they had finally accepted their lives didn't depend on me. I was wrong. Because what really happened was that they were preparing their final move. 2 months later, I received a letter from the bank. At first, I thought it was a mistake. I had no debt, my accounts were in order. But when I opened it, the contents left me frozen. It was a formal notification. My parents had tried to use my name to refinance their mortgage. Not only had they attempted to put my name on their debt, but they had also forged my signature. I grabbed my phone and called my mother immediately. She answered with a trembling voice. Alex, I knew you would call. So you really thought you could steal from me and get away with it? It's not stealing. It was just a mistake. We planned to pay it back. With what money, Mom? You have no income. Dad can barely cover his own expenses. Or were you expecting me to fix it too? We had no other option. Yes, you did. You could have worked. You could have sold the house and moved somewhere cheaper. But instead, you chose to deceive me. She sobbed. Your father didn't want to do it. It was my idea. I don't care who did it. You're both responsible. Son, if you report this, you'll ruin us. There it was. The last card. Blackmail. If I pressed charges, they might face legal consequences. Their house would almost certainly be repossessed. Their reputation would be destroyed. But that wasn't my fault. They had put themselves in that situation. Mom, you're not my problem anymore. Alex, please. We're your family. I took a deep breath. No. You're just two people who tried to take advantage of me. And I hung up. The next day, I went straight to the bank. I explained the situation and provided evidence that I had nothing to do with the mortgage. My parents were officially notified. A few weeks later, their house was put up for auction. They tried to stop the process, but there was nothing they could do. In the end, they were forced to move into a small apartment, no luxuries, no comforts. And, of course, Ryan didn't take long to come looking for me. One day, I ran into Ryan outside my office. He looked worse than ever. Deep dark circles under his eyes, disheveled clothes, an expression of pure desperation. We need to talk. There's nothing to talk about. Alex, please. Dad is sick. Mom is devastated. They can't live like this. This is how normal people live, Ryan. It's not my fault they don't know what it means to earn a living. But you have money. It wouldn't cost you anything to help them. Exactly. It wouldn't cost me anything. And that's why I won't do it. Ryan looked at me with pure hatred. You only think about yourself. And you've been taking advantage of me for too long. But at least I know how to live without depending on anyone. I turned my back on him and walked into my office. I knew that was the last time I would see him. 6 months passed. During that time, my business continued to grow. I traveled, enjoyed my life, and focused on what truly mattered. One day, while checking my emails, I saw a message from an unknown number. It simply said, I hope you're doing well, Mom. I read it. I thought about everything that had happened, and I deleted it, without responding, because, for the first time in my life, I felt completely free. But the story didn't end there. A month later, during a meeting with business partners, one of them looked at me curiously. Alex, what happened with your family? I lifted my glass and looked at him. Why do you ask? He pulled out his phone and slid the screen toward me, showing me a social media post. My parents had tried again. Once again, they were begging for money. Only this time, they didn't mention my name. Now, the story was that a successful businessman had turned his back on them and left them in misery. It was ridiculous. They were adults, fully capable of working, but instead, they continued playing the victims. I took a deep breath and smiled. Nothing to worry about. They just learned to live without me in their own way. I didn't look at the post a second time. I didn't care. Because now, finally, I was free. After everything that happened, I decided to share my story on Reddit. Not because I needed validation, but because I wanted to let it all out. Writing it down helped me see everything clearly. But what I didn't expect was the massive reaction. Thousands of comments. Divided opinions. Some people supported me, others hated me. Some said I was brave. Others called me a heartless monster. And while I no longer felt guilty, reading those words made me reflect. The most repeated comment was, how could you do this to your own parents? At first, I laughed. It was ironic. The real question should have been, how could they do this to me? How could they mock me for years while spending my money without hesitation? How could they try to forge my signature to put me into even more debt? How could they resort to manipulation, public humiliation, and guilt just to keep depending on me? But of course, to the world, a child must always help their parents, no matter how toxic they are. Another comment said, you could have given them a little money and avoided all this drama. Yeah, right? Because giving in once means they'll never take advantage of you again. That's exactly what I did for years. I gave, and gave, and gave, always thinking that one day they would see me as something more than just their source of income. But they never did. Because when people realize they can exploit you without consequences, they never stop on their own. There were also people who said, your parents are old. They couldn't find jobs easily. You left them homeless. False. My parents weren't disabled. They weren't sick. They had simply never tried to do anything for themselves. They never needed to because I was always there to save them. And when I finally forced them to face reality, they found a way to survive. Because they always could. But the comment that impacted me the most was a simple one. Do you regret it? I didn't respond right away. I stared at the screen, thinking. And then, with absolute certainty, I typed my answer. No. I only regret not doing it sooner. Because now, for the first time in my life, I was free.